Miss. Here I invite you to conversations about the subtleties in life, where life is truly lived. As Mozart said, the music is not in the notes, but in the silence between them. Hi, I'm your host, Cordelia Gaffar, the ultimate joy goddess, inviting you to choose joy and pleasure so that you actually love your life. Women who work with me get to reveal themselves to themselves so that they can reveal themselves to those they love. So today, I'm so excited to be here with my guest, Dr. Nima Moore, who will be joining us shortly. And we're going to talk about menopause. It's the best time of your life. I know there's some of you who are probably listening and thinking, yeah, no, I am suffering. My body is this, and my mind is that. And yeah, so you're going to find out the science and the art behind all of those things that you may be currently experiencing. And the good news is I'm so excited that there are these so many private conversations going on, and women are open to having these discussions. Everyone, you know, didn't have the luxury of having a mother who may have been really open about talking about her body and her experiences, but growing up, actually, I vividly remember my mom when she was my age, and, she had cold flashes, right? Everyone talks about hot flashes. I actually run cold. And I kind of knew that was coming. And then also, I'm the youngest, and I have three older sisters, and I watched them go through their various experiences. And so I kind of knew it was coming because we talk about these things in my family. And so, as I was going through what I want to discuss in the month of April, I was talking, the beauty of what? And I had already discussed with Nima that I would like to have her on my show. And it ended up the dates that worked were in April. And so I said, "Oh, your topic's menopause. That's what we're talking about, the beauty of menopause." And so I am really excited to have this conversation with her today. And so, she will be joining us shortly. And in the interim, while we're waiting for her to come in, put your questions in the comments. Like, what have you been experiencing? What questions do you have? What are your thoughts? If you may not be in menopause, you may be in perimenopause. And perimenopause is just the preparation for menopause. And so you kind of think about it like this, right? So there's pre-puberty and then there's puberty, right? So it's the same thing when we're on the other end of the decline, right? So we have perimenopause is like pre-puberty, where sometimes your cycle may play peekaboo with you, right? Um, Before it actually stops. So the distinction here, right, is in perimenopause. And like, I'm going to give you what I know, but when Dr. Moore joins us, she will give you the truth or like the facts, right? So when you go through perimenopause, you may, have your cycles sometimes, or you may have differences in your body temperature, the way your body receives food that you may have been eating all your life. Your relationship with coffee may change. Your relationship with alcohol may change. Your relationship with your best friend, your spouse, sex, all kinds of things will change. Once menopause happens, that means that your menses have paused for a full year, right? And that's when you're actually in menopause. You'll have a different set of experiences, right? Like you may have lost your sex drive during perimenopause, but you may be like a horny teenager in menopause. And I know we've been taught that, oh, once you have menopause, all that declines. No. So, um, there is actually a lot of women experience a sexual awakening in menopause. Sometimes they experience it in perimenopause. So, like, we'll talk about all those things coming up shortly. I just want to say, be open to, uh, as much as you want to put the questions in the comments. If you don't feel comfortable, look, if you're on LinkedIn, send me a DM, or you always have the option to send me an email, which is hello@Cordelia Gaffar with an A, GAFFAR.com. And if I don't address those, or we don't address those questions during the show, then we can address them after the show. So I just wanted to let you know. I know because still sometimes, people are shy about having open discussions about that. And, to be honest, we are live streaming. And so people will see your comments with your name real time. So here she is. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
You look
Happy
gorgeous.
Monday. Thank
Happy
you.
Monday.
Sorry, I'm a little late. Had to.
You're absolutely on time. I had actually run out of things to say,
You did? Oh, so let's go.
so now we can go. So, I did not read your bio, but I'm just gonna say
Yeah.
Nima is a friend of mine. She is a dynamic chiropractor. She's a best-selling Amazon author, and her book is Confidence Now.
Yes.
Yeah,
Now.
so, I was just okay, so correct me if I'm wrong.
Hmm.
What I was saying is that perimenopause is kinda like pre-puberty
Hmm.
and menopause is like puberty.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
Yay.
Exactly. Exactly. And the thing about perimenopause is that it can start so early, as early as 35 years old, you can start to have symptoms of hot flashes and hormonal changes. And are we ready to jump in? Because
Oh,
I'm ready
absolutely.
to.
Yeah, 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 this is where we are, so yeah, let's do it.
But sometimes, no one's telling us this. Everyone's giving us this one age that everyone, I don't know, it's like I don't know, I guess it's when you turn 49 or 50, they're saying 51, um, that you just flip a switch and all of a sudden you're in menopause and no one tells you anything. I don't know about some of the ladies out there, but my experience has been I just thought when I would get to this transition that when I would go to my doctor, my gynecologist, that she would be like, okay, let's have the talk. Let's talk about what you're going to experience. Let's talk about, what you can expect. And it was nothing. It was nothing. I just kept asking her, kind of like waiting for her to say something, and she had nothing to say. And I don't think that's because she's a bad doctor. I think that is the experience of so many different women, that they experience that same feeling of not really knowing what to do, not really knowing how to get over their symptoms, and really looking to their healthcare provider to give them some answers. And they just kind of say, okay, well, let's check you for estrogen. And there's more to it than that, right? Because everyone, that's a whole nother story, which maybe we'll get into today, is that everyone's not a candidate for estrogen. So then what?
Well,
Then
I have a question about that. What is the testing? Because I remember how old was I? I had my last child, so I must have been like 43, and they did some endocrine testing,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so they found out that my thyroid was, which way was it? Hyperactive.
Mhm.
So like I was secreting too much,
Mhm.
right? Um, and they said that my estrogen was declining and that we may consider doing some, what do you call it? What is that called? Hormone replacement
Replacement
or something?
therapy. Mhm.
But they couldn't do anything because my baby was 1 and I was still nursing. They said, "So come back afterwards."
Mhm.
So, now most people don't have babies at 42, but, like, when you get, results like that, what should be the conversation?
Well, if you first of all, they're going to ask you some of those questions to kind of see, like, do we even proceed with the test? And that's kind of where you were, is like, let's just find out if you're even a candidate. Should we even move forward with the test, because we don't even know if you're going to be able to actually do the hormone replacement therapy. So I mean, obviously you can ask there's really nothing else.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there's no, and I'm saying that because I am in the category of there's nothing else we can do, as well, because I have fibroids, and a lot of women out there have fibroids, and fibroids are fed by estrogen. They're fed by hormones. And so they don't really want for me to give someone more estrogen who, it's going to just feed them to possibly grow. So that's kind of, there's just really not any other alternative, which is when you should go and see some of your alternative health doctors like myself. And there's many other doctors out there that can help you when it comes to some natural ways of, balancing your hormones out. But there's just, I don't there from what I understand and what I have experienced myself, there's no other real option. And the people who get the hormone replacement therapy I'm hearing such great things. It's kind of like you say, well, I want some of that. I want some of that too. There's pellets. There's just so many different things that they can do. But the people who seem to fall into the non HRT, um, there's not really much that they tell you to do. So that's when you need to seek out some alternative therapies, work on your exercise. We can talk about some of those tips that I'm going to give today to really help with the symptoms of, going through the transition.
So, I think in my case, what happened was when I stopped nursing, like, it just sorted itself out
Hmm.
because
Right,
I didn't that was my problem apparently.
right. Nursing and pregnancy is such a plays so much. Obviously, hormones are a big part of it, even after the baby is born, even with your ligaments as well. There's a big part of hormones that play into how your body moves. So, and breastfeeding is a huge one as far as balancing hormones and balancing hormones out. When you're breastfeeding, there's a certain amount of hormones, and then when you're not, as well. Those hormones start to decrease because you're not lactating, like you were before.
So, you brought up a really interesting point. You said you personally have fibroids and many women do.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
let's talk about, like, what do women with fibroids do? Like what,
Yeah. Fibroids is one of those things that unfortunately really plagues, Black women, um, at a higher rate than other races. I feel like there's a lot of different reasons for that, whether it's diet, exercise. I think stress is probably the number one thing that, plays into that. And, fibroids is one of those things. There's a lot of different things out there nowadays to help with fibroids. And I can share a little bit about what I actually did, which was not, I'm going to call it not the norm,
okay.
because the norm is hysterectomy.
Mhm.
And so a lot of women have hysterectomies. There's also, where they can take the fibroids out of the uterus and leave your uterus. And it's just depends on what's best for the woman. So definitely not making a judgment on what you decide to do. I wanted to try to keep my uterus. And
Why?
so,
Explain why though.
um, I just people, a lot of times the medical community will say, like, oh, this part doesn't do anything anymore, so let's just cut it out. And I just don't believe that when it comes to the body. I just feel like obviously God put certain things there for a reason. Um, and not necessarily for you to cut it out if you not unless you just really have to. And so I was at the doctor and he said, you need a hysterectomy like in 3 weeks. And I had gone to different doctors, and this was a doctor who had been around he was an older gentleman and came well respected from my OBGYN. And he's like, you need a hysterectomy. Let's go ahead and get you scheduled. And I was just like, man, I don't get time to think about this because, like, to me, this is kind of major. I'm not someone
Ooh,
who's had a
thanks.
lot of, yeah, yeah. He was just, but it was so common for him that it was just like, to me, he just acted like he was door dashing. Like that's
Oof.
how um loose he said it. It was just, and for me, it was a very emotional experience.
Yes.
I was a very emotional experience to decide yes or no. And so I had a cousin who said, "Listen, I had another procedure done that you should check out. It's called uterine embolization."
Hmm.
So I said, "Well, why don't I know about this? Why are not the OBGYNs talking about this?" And I had gone to two different ones. And so the first one, who I still see, said, I don't think you're a candidate for it." And so I was like, "Okay. Well, she should know." She would know, right? She would know. This is why it's so important to gather information before you make decisions on your health. Because what you don't realize is that certain providers don't have information that the other provider has.
Mhm.
So for example, providers are always say, not always, because some don't say this, but some will say, don't go see the chiropractor.
Mhm.
Don't go see that. Well, they don't know really what chiropractic does. So
Yeah.
they just say, don't go see the chiropractor. And you're missing out on such a huge part of enhancing your life. So back to my story, we can talk about that another time.
Mhm.
But I said, well, I'm going to go see this other doctor who does uterine embolization and sign up for this fibroid program, which is here in Virginia. And I signed up for the program, and it's called it's through Nova. I think it's through Nova. And I went to see a cardiologist. So he was a cardiac surgeon. So an OBGYN does not know what a cardiac surgeon does when it comes to a uterine embolization. So you have to talk to and consult with him or her to get the information to decide if it's best for you. Whereas an OBGYN is just going to automatically say no. But
Mhm.
the cardiac surgeon can tell me, because it's through blood vessels that they stop the blood flow to the fibroids so that you're able to shrink the fibroids so that
Okay.
you're able to keep your uterus. That's
Ah.
the goal. The goal is, now people who want to have more children, they say, is not a great candidate for that. So, because you are decreasing the blood flow to the uterus.
Right.
But if you're at that age where you are like, I think I'm done with having children, then, but nothing's absolute, right? Because after I had it, they're like, okay, be careful, you might still get pregnant. It's like, well, wait a second. You said I could. Now you're saying be careful because you don't know. Because there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees with anything that you do. So I had the procedure. It is, if anyone's ever had anything where you go through a vein or an artery, it's literally, they just poke one little hole and then they use a wire to go all the way through your body down to your uterus. So the only thing that you leave with is a band-aid. You don't leave with scarring, you don't leave with, because it's such as they just have to go through one vein. So
Wow.
my procedure was a little difficult because I had so many and he didn't even know if he could help me, but I was like, well, let's just try. And so we tried it and it worked, and it has been amazing. So my point is that there are different options. definitely please consider uterine embolization if for you, that you would like to keep your uterus and that's something you would want to try. Now, they don't guarantee that later on you might not need a hysterectomy. It just depends. Everyone is different. But
Mhm.
for me, I have had just such great results with this. And it did shrink my fibroids greatly. And I also knew I was at the age where I was going to get close to menopause and they were going to shrink anyway.
Mhm.
So it just depends on what's best for you. Is that best for maybe somebody 25? Not probably the best decision
Yeah.
because, she may still want to have children.
Yes.
So, but
Amen.
I do want to just put that out there. There are other methods that you should look into, and
Mhm.
your OB's not going to tell you because they don't know the full procedure. And you will have to see a cardiologist or cardiac surgeon to actually do that. Who would know? A cardiac surgeon would know anything that would have to do with the uterus. And so when I went to him, I said, why are they not telling us this?
Yeah.
He's like, there's a lot of money in doing hysterectomies.
Yeah. Yeah. I was about to say,
It's a
but
lot of money in that.
before I get back to like the money making part of the woman's reproductive system,
Right. Right. It's a lot of
I'm
money in that.
so curious. How has it affected your sex life?
You know what? Which part?
The uterine embolization.
Oh, it does. I haven't had any problems at all when it comes to that. You know, it shrinks your fibroids, but it doesn't damage the other parts that are important for intimacy. So I think that's what I loved because that's okay. So let me say this. That's what I was trying to avoid by not having hysterectomy,
Mhm.
you know, because I know of all the things that, they tell you it's no big deal. I don't know why they say it's no big deal because it is a big deal. And there are side effects from having the surgery, as well as there's side effects from having a full hysterectomy versus partial hysterectomy. So that's something to be very fully aware about, meaning, are they taking your ovaries or just your uterus? And a full
What's the difference?
hysterectomy,
Yeah.
taking the ovaries, there's way more symptoms that come with that, especially affecting people's sex life. So I was just trying to avoid all that. I'm like, let's just, can we hold out as long as we can? So with uterine embolization, because you are still able to keep your uterus, your parts are still working like they need to be. Obviously, I was closer to menopause, so you're going to have those fluctuations in um hormones, but everyone starts at a different point, right? Like every
Mhm.
women are at different points when it comes to intimacy for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
So I think it also depends on your starting point,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
are you starting at a point where you've always had issues?
Mhm.
Um, and then you have this, I don't know if that's going to change it. I think you're just going to continue like you are. But if you're a person who has not had issues um, in that area or with intimacy or with your sex life or having orgasms, then I think you'll just continue to be like you are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, getting back to thank you so much for sharing about that because I feel like that's another elephant in the room that we don't talk about. And with, I guess I have another question about fibroids. Does going through the change exacerbate like the fibroid condition? Like does it make it worse?
No, it makes it better.
It makes it better. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, right. I think you said before because the blood decreases going. Okay.
exactly. So when you have fibroids, they're being fed by all of the hormones. So this is why what you eat makes a huge difference in fibroids, because there are foods and there are things that we do as women that increase our estrogen, which that's what they feed off of. So when you're going through menopause, those hormones are decreasing. And so shrinkage happens normally
Okay.
anyway. So that's why when I was getting close, I'm like, I know I'm not super close, but I know it's coming down the road. I'm closer to it than I am further away from it. That I knew that my fibroids would begin to shrink, and so you just have less problems all the way, all together, because you're not having monthly cycles. You're not having all of the debilitating symptoms that go along with having a monthly cycle, and your fibroids are starting to shrink. So
So
it's great.
it's
Menopause is
great.
great for
Yeah.
fibroids.
So
That's one thing we can say.
the beauty of menopause or the perimenopause phase is fibroid condition gets better. Um,
Absolutely.
number 2,
Absolutely.
you have quarterly cycles sometimes.
That's right. Right.
And
Exactly.
what is the age range? Let's just talk about that because a lot you said
Yeah.
it's a long time.
Well, it's, anywhere between 49 and 51. They put the number 51. But as I have been doing research and studying this, what I did find is that African American women are hitting menopause sooner. So 51 is not the age. If you're normally, for an African American woman, we're hitting it 2 years before other races. So we're looking at 48, 49 for hitting menopause earlier, but the number that they use is 51, and it can last for, some years after you hit 51.
Okay.
So, um and that's the common age that people start to transition into menopause, is
And
that
perimenopause begins
can begin at 35. So
30.
when I have patients coming to see me at 39, or they're like, "I'm just going to be 40." I'm like, "Yeah, because you are already starting to transition. It can start 15 years before whatever your due date of menopause is." So, that can be 35, that can be 40 years old, that
Wow.
you can definitely start. You're definitely in perimenopause at 40,
Okay.
definitely at that point. And so you're having the hot flashes, you're having the hormonal changes, you might be having some more aches and pains at that age. But there are ways to slow the process. You can't avoid it, ladies. Unfortunately, we
Yeah.
can't avoid it, but you can do this with grace, and finding your new self in the process.
So what are some of the things they can do?
What are some things that menopause can do? Some positive things about it?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think this is a time, number 1, that women are able to reassess their life. I feel like it is a catalyst to reassess what is working and what is not working, especially when it comes to your health, but also when it comes to your overall life, because we're at that, I want to say, I guess I'll say, halfway point. I
Mhm.
mean, when you get to 50, 49, 50. And so it's a great catalyst to reassess what has happened, what has been working for you, what has not been working for you. What do you want to change about your life moving forward on this next part of your journey? What do you want to spend more time doing? What do you want your legacy to be? How do you want to better take care of yourself during this time? So I think it's a great wake up call for women, because they now kids are a little older usually.
Unless you
Usually,
wait
and
until your
I'm not
40s.
saying, listen, I'm not saying, because I don't know our generation there. We got a lot of little babies running
Yeah.
around and that's okay. That's a beautiful thing. I'm saying that they are usually they can feed themselves
Yeah.
when we get 50. They might still be elementary or even in middle school and above, but at least you still have a little bit. Usually, if you don't have a baby, you have more freedom.
Mhm.
You're able to do a few more things. You're able to spend a little bit more time possibly on yourself. And so it's time to kind of look at, what you want those next years to be like for your life. Sometimes it's a career change. People
Yeah.
are starting to think about retiring, and it's just a great time to think about what you want to happen next. So that's number 1. I think that's a great thing. But I also think that confidence comes at
Mhm.
this part. We begin to stop thinking so much about what people think about us and what people have to say. And we start finding our own voice at this time. We start finding our own voice. This is when you start to hear women say, "Well, I don't care. This is what makes me happy. I don't care what anyone else thinks. I'm tired of constantly dimming my light, not doing the things that I want to do out of fear of what other people will think. So I think those are two beautiful things that come out of menopause that we can start to appreciate and celebrate on this journey.
And how do you support women with that?
Oh, well, guess what? This is what is so awesome about this conversation today because this is my jam. My
Okay.
jam is women over 40 who want to take back their life, who want to get, who know and recognize I need to do something different. And so I create safe spaces for women to become healthy and confident from the inside out. I do that through my chiropractic care at my office in Woodbridge. I do that through my wellness programs that can be done virtually, as well as my retreats that I do locally as well as internationally, so that women can have safe, beautiful, stunning places to reconnect with themselves but also reconnect with like-minded women.
So you actually create like community around like changing your life. Mm.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And also holding your hand as you take those big leaps. Some people are, when you get to this stage, you want to take this leap, but wow, I've been in corporate for my whole life, or I've been a government employee my entire life. I haven't been in those spaces, so I have this attitude of freedom because I've always had my own business for the most part. And so I've been able to be creative and have more opportunities to just walk and do what I wanted to do, but everyone hasn't had that opportunity when you're in a corporate space, and not just corporate space as in physically. I'm talking about corporate space
Yeah.
mindset. Like, this is all that I can do. I'm a robot. This is all that I can do. There's so much more to you to that than that. And so I love to help women to take those big leaps into what their next is.
Yeah, and what I do love, I think last year I finally made it to one of your luncheons. So, and you have that coming up next month as well
I
as your
do.
um I'm not going to be able to go to your weekend retreat, but you want to just share that a little bit?
Sure. So I have a wellness weekend retreat. I wanted to bring something that was here in the United States because I've done my events usually in well, Bali's coming up in November, but Aruba, and we've been thinking about other locations. And I said, I really, some people don't want to travel, don't have the time to travel, or they
Yeah.
don't want, they want to take a smaller investment, but they still want to have this experience with a retreat. And so I created this experience here in the western part of the county of Prince William County, where we're going to be closer to the mountains. It's all about spa, wellness. We're going to have a sound bowl
Mhm.
experience, which I'm so excited about. We're
I
going to
love
do some,
samples.
I know, we're going to have a sound bowl experience. We're going to have an amazing lunch and dinner. We're going to do 4 hours at the spa with foot bath detox, salt room, heliotherapy, hydrotherapy, red. It's so much therapy going on.
Look,
Red light therapy.
hydrotherapy is like totally a thing,
I
right?
know. And it's just gonna be so amazing. And I've done this before and I decided to put them all together. And then on Sunday, we're gonna have the finale where we're gonna bring women who everyone didn't come to the retreat, but other people are invited to come to the brunch at Bluemont Winery, which I love. They just treat me so well whenever I go there, and they just treat us like queens. And so I thought it would be a great time to just release onto the mountain. If none of you all have been, it's just stunning. It's just a whole vibe. Just going there, brunch or no brunch.
Yes.
And we're going to have brunch. There's women coming from all over the DMV that are rock stars that are amazing. And we're just going to reconnect with ourselves, get grounded and meet some other amazing women and have some amazing food.
Yeah, it is like great conversation, great food,
Yes.
and you make it
Thank
fun. I
you.
forgot there was I'm not gonna give away all the goodies, but there was like some different kind of ways that we got to connect with each other, like
Yes.
introducing ourselves to each other. So,
That's the goal is, I think whenever we can go and connect with each other as women, we love this. First of all, women,
yes,
we don't ever get tired of going to brunch and connecting and hey, come over, let's have something to eat, let's talk, let's have some conversation. And that's what this is going to be about, so that women can get to know each other, but also just, release
Yeah.
and realize that you're not alone in what you're going through.
You know what I'm hearing, Nima? Like the main part that's the beauty of menopause is we get to make friends a different way,
Mm,
Um, because we may have friends like that we've always had,
right.
but how fun is it to like make new friends?
That's what I say.
Yeah.
I just said this yesterday. So this is so in alignment. I just said this yesterday. And I was talking to my husband about this. I said, but the way you're going to make new friends at this age in life is you're going to have to be a part of something.
Yeah.
You're going to have to be a part of. That's how I met you.
Yeah.
Is being going to OPT. Shout out to OPT.
Mhm.
Um, you're going to have to be a part of something. And if you can be a part of something, it's something that you all have in common. It's a way to get to know people. It's hard to you do have your friends that you've been friends with for a long time, but sometimes they're not doing the same things you're doing. They're
Yeah.
just great, good girlfriends who've known you forever, but they're not moving in the same way that you're moving. And so it's nice to be around other like-minded women who really understand what your journey has been.
Yeah. And it's okay to make new friends. That
Yes,
doesn't mean that your old friends go away.
that's right. You can make
I
new
like,
friends.
I still got my girls that we had our first babies together, but, I have
Yes,
new girlfriends too.
exactly, exactly. I think, I feel like for me, this is the part of life where you just get to be curious and you get to explore all the parts of you, meeting new friends, going new places, just maybe experiencing some things that you didn't have the opportunity to experience
Yes.
because you were going to track meets like myself and running around and sitting at basketball games and, you know,
Travel soccer and
yeah,
going
travel,
all up
you're
and down the East
traveling.
Coast.
Right. So maybe you're at the point where you have a few less games to go to because maybe some of them have gone off and maybe a few are still at home and they're about to leave the nest and do their thing. So it's just a time for you to get more curious because we've spent so much time, especially for my mamas out there, raising children and we have focused so much on them that we don't have the opportunity to always explore all the different layers and parts to ourselves.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on What People Miss, because I feel like you thoroughly discussed what people miss about
Mm,
menopause. And I'm so happy that we got a chance to really drill down on what people miss about fibroids, because I feel like maybe we have you back to have a little bit more
of
discussion on
course,
that.
of course.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I just want to say thank you so much for having me and, creating this safe space and platform for women that you do in every, like, if you all don't know her, please get to know Cordelia, and she's a whole vibe. She's a whole vibe by herself,
I
and, she always creates this safe space for women just in her presence. With it doesn't matter if it's a podcast or you're meeting her in person, and so I'm so appreciative for that because, we need women who make us feel safe, and you do that.
thank you. I appreciate the acknowledgement. And on that note, I do want to make an invitation. This is something that I'm starting this week, and I'll probably be doing it ongoing. um, as we talk about Black women, it occurs to me that one of our major stresses, especially in this country, is racism.
Mhm.
So I've created a town hall style conversation around the beauty of racism.
I saw that post. I hadn't listened to it. I said, "Now what is Cordelia talking about now? What's going on with the beauty of racism?" I'm sure she's got something interesting to say about that.
Yeah. So like this coming Wednesday night at 7 o'clock Eastern time, I'm, and actually quite a few people have signed up already so I want to discuss like what has been your experience of racism
Oh
and
yes.
what are some of like the benefits for me this is what caused me to start my practices of self-nurturing because I worked on Capitol Hill.
Mm,
When Strom Thurmond was still a senator, and alive. I don't know if anyone know who he is, but he was a
right.
senator from South Carolina that's
Yes.
known for, um, you know, being the original Trump,
Yeah.
like molesting women in the elevator and whatnot. So,
Mm,
anyway, these are the kind of things that I was like, if I don't take care of myself, if I don't nurture myself and love
mm,
myself, then I could, dig myself an early grave. So I
yeah.
want to talk about what are some of the things that you have done for yourself as a result of these experiences.
Ooh,
And if
that's
we,
so
yeah,
that's just so good. I call myself a little bit of a unicorn, um, in that space, in the fact that I grew up in Michigan, and I was the only Black in my class until 5th grade. So, and I was a very that's a whole story. But, um, so my experiences are very different than a lot of people, and then I went to an HBCU as well. So I have, like, all these different little pieces that, you gather information from, and experiences that you have that make you different, that make you change. And there's been some interesting experiences with both situations. So I would love to hear uh, that conversation that you're going to have about racism. And
yeah,
then, of course, I've been to, spent some time in Africa, and what that has done to my identity in the last few years, and how it has changed me as well. So it's like so many different layers, and everyone has had different experiences. I grew up in the Midwest. My husband grew up in the South. My parents are from North Carolina. So I was raised by, oh, there's just so much there. There's so
yeah,
much there. There's
there
so much
really
there. I
is.
won't go on, but that's a great conversation to have.
Yeah. Well, stop by if you're free. And like
I
I said,
will,
yeah,
definitely.
look, I don't think this will be the last one. It's just kind of like, you sometimes you want to do something a little extra. So
Absolutely. And you should see, because this is the power of this age. Is where you just get to be saucy and sassy and explore and be curious.
yeah.
That's exactly what it's about. You may not have done this at 25.
I may not have done this I was too busy trying to figure out how to love myself.
Exactly. That's the
I
beauty of
look,
this age.
I had to come home and be like, "Cordelia, we love you. It's okay if none of those people love you. It's okay." You know, that's what I was doing at 25.
Right. That's why this is such a beautiful time to you're exploring, you're being curious,
Yeah,
right? And that's what this time period is about. That's
yeah.
great.
Well, thank you so much for having this conversation. Thank you for, like sharing your experiences in your life and, being giving personal as well as professional information around menopause today. And definitely we'll have you back for a couple of other different topics, I'm
Please.
sure.
I would love
But
that.
where can ladies find you if they want to come to any of your events?
Sure. Just I am Dr. Nima DC. So just what you see on the screen, my first name, Dr. Nima DC, on all platforms. Where do I play the most? Is on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. That's where you can find me and interact with me. I'm usually posting almost every day. So if you're interested in coming to the brunch, I would love to have you. We usually have people come from all over the DMV, Southern Virginia, Northern Virginia, Maryland. People, we have people coming from everywhere, for this event on May 18th, and it's going to be a Sunday. So I would love for you to come. Just reach out to me, and I just love meeting new people.
Yeah.
That's where Cordelia and I are the same. We love meeting new people and creating new relationships. So reach out to me, say hello, if I can help or support you and with your menopause. Oh, I am having a free menopause masterclass
On the
on
20th. That's right. I
on the
saw that.
20th. So that is free. You can come and learn more about menopause and perimenopause, and what you should be taking, what you should be doing, and how to help ease the transition with your symptoms.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, share this with another heart, share this with another soul, and don't let another day go by where you miss living and the subtleties of life. Bye for now.